All right, all right, all right. Welcome into Toilets to Titles, episode number 195. Man, we are 5 episodes from 200. I see people are already in here waiting for us. We apologize. We were running a little late this evening because we were recording. So we have the highest tier for our Patreon is Patreon tier 5. It's $20 a month. And with that, you get a podcast episode breaking down one of the leagues you play in. So shout out to Stephen Middleton. We just recorded an episode breaking down. We're going to send you an email after this episode with the breakdown. It was a lot of fun, but now we're here a little bit late. We appreciate you being patient to break down, to recap week 1 of the fantasy football season, just a little bit. But if you want a thorough recap, if you could check our YouTube channel, you could see my recap of Sunday. You could see my recap of Thursday night. I recapped in about 10-minute videos. So go check that out in our YouTube thread. And Justin has the biggest questions after week 1. It's going to be coming out sometime tomorrow. So we're going to touch on a little bit of a recap from week 1, but mostly we're going to dive into week 2 because it's do or die right now. It's always do or die in fantasy. If you lost week 1, you're tilting already. We're going to help you get it back on track. But if you won week 1, we're going to help you take your foot and step on somebody's throat and suffocate them so you can go ahead and win some championships. Justin, how are we feeling this evening?
Hey, I'm feeling great. That was a very fun episode, guys. If you're a $20 Patreon, you want us to do a breakdown of your league, that was a lot of fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to razz guys about their picks and stuff. So that was a lot of fun.
Man, and shout out to everybody in Frankenstank, and shout out to everybody who contributed all off season, watched all the videos Justin sent where he spent his time breaking down videos of cards and how to play cards and how to steal players, because this was the first week. So if you're listening because you just tuned into fantasy football, we're going to talk about fantasy football, but Frankenstank is our listener league, and it's absolutely bananas, and you should check it out because we have videos about it. Well, it's vampire style. And there's certain rules to how you can steal a player. And there's also playable cards that get played mostly after the games that can alter the score. And you can only play your card for the most part once. Some of them are multiple times. So some people are kind of like, hey, why did my score change? Hey, why did a player get stolen? So this is the first week where all that's happening. But for the most part, I'd say about 95% of the league. It's a 96-team league. It's going to be 150 next year. I'd say about 90 people are with the program. And there's generally 6 out of 96 isn't a lot. So I can deal with it. It's just hard to deal with it when we're on air and we're doing all that other stuff. So everybody who did pay attention, who knows what's going on, we appreciate you. We got a first question of the night. Is Ayuk's production going to be steady like that monster?
And that leads right into our first segment for you.
Man, well, instant reactions for week 1. I'm going to get into that, Carlos. Before I do that, if you're watching at home, hit the like button, throw some comments, subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. Check out toiletstotitles.com every Wednesday morning at noon. I don't know if that's considered morning. Maybe that's Wednesday at noon. All right. So every Wednesday noontime, my dudes and duds get released, which I break down on this show. And every Thursday at noon, Jason and Rich, they rank their top 15 players for the week. So you can see their rankings based upon matchups. So you definitely want to check out the website. And you do want to get into our gilded chat. So you can reach out to me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps or email us toilets2titles at gmail.com. Look down there below. Our gilded chat has over 220 people. We have a start sit thread. We have a trades thread. We have a DFS thread. We have a gambling thread. We have a games chat thread. So we have all these threads where people are talking about all these different things. And it's a community. It's a fun community. It's a considerate community. And we're all helping one another kind of grow and prosper throughout the 2023 fantasy football season. So, Justin, do you mind if I get into my instant reactions from week 1?
Do I mind? I can't wait.
Man, Jerry Bagshaw, nice to see you, man. I love seeing like names that have kind of been around. You know what I'm saying? So even Nick Faria, he's been around. You know, Carlos is one of the new guys. So Carlos, we appreciate. So Carlos, your question is Ayuk's production going to be steady like that monstrous week 1? Well, my first recap from this past week is Ayuk is that dude. And I knew it. And I've been telling you all since April. I planted my flag April, May. He was wide receiver 2 on the week, 2 touchdowns, led the team in targets with 8. Do I think he's going to finish wide receiver 2 every week? No, because there are some phenomenal wide receivers. But I think he'll be a wide receiver 1 every week, top 12 every week. Brock Purdy targeted him. The two playmakers on that team right now, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel, I think, got targeted 5 times. And Deebo Samuel is a good ball player. He's going to make things happen, but he's a make things happen guy. Brandon Ayuk is I'm going to fit the system. I'm going to run elite routes. I'm going to create separation. But not only do I do the skills of being a wide receiver great, I also do bring an added dimension of explosiveness and playmaking ability. So he's a very good wide receiver who's also a very good playmaker. Deebo is a playmaker. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
that works, but Ayuk is the guy you scheme, you
Right.
scheme, and so I do think he's going to be a wide receiver one week in and week out. Another note I have from this week, I think Sam Laporta is legitimate. Went into a tough environment. He saw 5 targets. He had 5 receptions. He was the best yards after contact tight end in college football last year. You can check PFF's numbers. He was a stud. There were tight ends who are better at other things than him. He was the best at that. Tough environment. He's going to be at home in Detroit. Goff already believes in him. Laporta, was a few broken tackles. If he would have made one tackle miss, it'd go from a 40-yard day to a 60-yard day. 5 receptions, 60 or 70 yards. That's 12 points. I'm content with that. Go ahead, Justin.
And those 5 catches on 5 targets, they were not all right there in the numbers either. He had to reach for a couple of those. He showed some real athleticism as well.
Right. And another note I have, I don't really like the split between Monty and Gibbs. It was like a 70-30 split. I think it'll become more of a 60-40 split, but it's a thing. It's good for the Detroit Lions, because Monty can wear you down and Gibbs is going to have big plays, especially when they get indoors. But for fantasy managers, it's a problem. And it's a problem you're going to have to deal with. But those of you who took David Montgomery late, you're going to be able to put him in as a flex play, and he's going to be a high floor flex play. And it's really Gibbs that's going to be the wild card. Some weeks he's going to boom, some weeks he's going to bust. Another note I have is Anthony Richardson can be fantasy relevant without Jonathan Taylor. I didn't know if that was possible. He was quarterback 4 in the week, 21.9 point performance, and he also had like a 60-something completion percentage for a guy who was deemed not ready to throw the football. Run first. He ran, I want to say, like 40 yards. So he had a good day running, but I think he will have better days running when he has a running back next to him. But he got it done decently through the air.
And for what it's worth, like this was a great job from the coaching staff because they put him in situations to get that high accuracy rate. Because even those short little 5-yard passes were not very accurate. It was ugly. It was very ugly to watch in the passing game, but it was effective. So great job to the Colts coaching staff.
Right. So they made it work, and I'm assuming he's going to improve over time. I think him and Josh Downs, they're going to be dynamic. Him and Michael Pittman are going to be dynamic. Josh Downs, the dude. I told you about him the whole draft cycle. He was one of my top 5 wide receivers in this class. I loved him. Next thing, Steve, Uncle Steve's in here. Nice to see you, my guy, Mark Simon. I know all of you are in the Frankenstein chat. 9 a.m. is the deadline. I'm not even we're really not even supposed to say this. You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to know the rules, and it's kind of not fair to others who know the rules if you don't know the rules. But guys who are in Frankenstein, if you're in this chat, just please put out any fires without saying too much. Just do the right thing and put out any fires in the chat, because I'm not even looking right now. People are going bananas at the wrong time.
I shut my phone off when Uncle Steve called me.
Yeah. All right. Next thing. The Packers are in good hands with Jordan Love. That's another thing we were kind of on. They beat the Bears. They beat the brakes off the Bears. Jordan Love spread the ball out to 8 different receivers. That means he understands the offense. That means he's got a good grip on the offense. The Bears, on the other hand, they still have work to do. They can still afford, because it's not really even the offense that was super disappointing. It was the defense. They didn't sack Jordan. I think they sacked Jordan Love once. Maybe not even at all. They barely got to the quarterback. Is that the Bears? That's not how the Chicago Bears play football. What is going on? So I was very surprised. The Bears have work to do. Geno Smith turned back into a pumpkin. 16 completions on 26 attempts, 112 yards and a touchdown. There's no excuse when you got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith in the Jigba. But spoiler alert, I think he rebounds this week. Did the Browns run the AFC East? They beat the brakes off Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, but they've had the Bengals number. So is it just them having the Bengals number like the Rams have the Seahawks number, or the Browns actually that good? We're probably going to find out this week. Joe Burrow and the Bengals wet the bed week 1. Burrow 14 for 31, 82 yards. Jamar Chase 5 receptions. He didn't have 93 yards. I put the numbers in. I think he had 5 receptions for 43 yards. Excuse me. I wrote the numbers in wrong here. Tua and Tyreek, this is not wrong. Both finished number 1 at their positions. It was phenomenal to watch. And I'm going to throw Tua some flowers. Tyreek, freak. Like the catches he made, some of the concentration catches, some of the body control catches, some of the routes he ran, everything he did was phenomenal. But Tua, he made one throw. It was like 3rd and 15, it was 3rd and long. Okay. And he had Braxton Berrios on a deep comeback route towards the sideline. I honestly think Tua was kind of rolling out of the pocket. I think it was a broken play. And I think Berrios was rolling to the sideline with him. And Tua threw it on a rope to the sideline. Right. Berrios dragged his toes. Like, it's one thing to connect with Tyreek, but to move the chains like that in a tight game, caps off to you, Tua. I was impressed with your skill. Zay Jones led all Ravens receivers with 9 receptions or 78 yards. And I think when Mark Andrews comes back, he might not get 9 receptions, but he might be able to do more with 7 receptions because the safety now is shadowing Mark Andrews. The linebacker is now shadowing or bracketing Mark Andrews, which is going to take somebody away from shadowing over the top of Zay Flowers. And if Zay Flower makes one person miss and there's nobody over the top because they're focused on Mark Andrews, he's taking it to the house. Puka Nacua, 10 receptions. I think someone said Cooper Nacua. I think George Reed said that. Shout out to George Reed. Cooper Nacua, which was very funny. 10 receptions, 119 yards. I don't know if I'm ready to drink the Kool-Aid yet. He was at the Senior Bowl. We were at the Senior Bowl. He participated day 1, crushed it, sat out the rest of the week. So he knew something we all didn't know. We liked him coming out of BYU. I liked him. I didn't know he'd come in day 1. 10 receptions for 119 yards. So shout out to him. The Dallas Cowboys defense is absolutely legitimate. Like, block field goal for a touchdown. Trayvon Diggs is laying the wood now. I don't know if it's going to be consistent, but he's willing to hit. It looks like he took some lessons from Stephon Gilmore this offseason. Trayvon Diggs the Cowboys are up 33-0. He gets kind of beat on an in route and he doesn't pack it in. He chases the guy down or rips the football out, up 33-0. Like, to care that much in a situation like that is what really impressed me. Zach Wilson's season in New York. Sorry to New York Jets fans. Aaron Rodgers is out, but Josh Allen looked like doo-doo. So his interceptions, 2 of his interceptions. The 3rd interception was a phenomenal play by Jordan Whitehead. But 2 interceptions were just deep bombs to nobody. I don't know what he was thinking. Not only that, the way he was running, he's always run the football reckless. But in situations he could have went out of bounds. Like, he was choosing contact, and it just seems selfish. It seems foolish, and it seems immature. All 3 of those things describe how Josh Allen played the game. And I'm sorry if you're a Bills fan, but you might deep down believe the same thing. And he needs to grow up a little bit. He needs to start making some better decisions. Garrett Wilson, here's a decision for Zach Wilson. Throw the football to Garrett Wilson. That's a good decision because he makes plays. That one catch he made, like reaching across the defender, batting it. You could see it. We created a YouTube short, but maybe we'll be taking that off of our shorts list. But there was a good catch by Garrett Wilson going across his body, pulling it in there. Absolutely phenomenal. So those are some of my thoughts. Instant reactions from week 1. In the comments, everybody, I'd love to hear your instant reactions to week 1. Now, Justin, why don't we talk about games of the week?
So for what it's worth, I just want everybody to know I'm not being lazy here. That I was actually looking forward to that segment, that instant reaction segment. Coach told me about it, and it took me like I don't know, an hour to get to the phone to go look and add my instant reactions. And he had that long list. This was like a prisoner that's been in isolation for 4 months, and this was his first day back to the commissary. Right. Like, he was so excited. So I let him have that segment. I've got a long segment myself where we kind of do the other thing, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, where we talk about our what I'm looking for week 2 moving ahead. But I just want to let you know we're only going to have time to talk about a few of them. But I'm going to drop a lot of those questions out to the Patreons in the Gilded Chat. Just want to get that out there now while we still have time to talk about it, because our Patreons are very important to us. I want to let you know I'm going to send a lot of those questions out to the Patreons because I want to hear what you guys have to say about those questions. But we wanted to talk about the game of the week, right?
Yeah, yes, sir. Let's move on to
So
game of the week.
we're going to recap last week. Last week, Coach, you chose the Dolphins-Chargers game to be your game of the week, and it was a game. That was a hell of a game, 36-34. Only a 2-point difference there, so you already have a huge lead on me in our little yearly game we play. And it was fun. It was exciting. It was a whole lot of offense and just enough defense to make it fun. And then my 49ers and Steelers game, not at all a fun game, not at all a close game. The Steelers defense really let me down. 23-point difference, so I got some catching up to do, but I usually do. And then
Yeah, it catches up quickly.
week 2, we're going to move ahead to week 2. I'll go ahead and talk about mine first. I've got the Chiefs at the Jaguars, so this is a 1 p.m. game. This is a potential playoff game. These are two teams that kind of underwhelmed a bit. If you can, I mean, I know the Jaguars won, but it was against the Colts that they were supposed to blow them out. It wasn't even supposed to be a close game. And then you've got the Chiefs. Both of these offenses are capable of much more than what we saw last week. Both of these defenses are stronger than what we saw last week. So this should be an exciting, fun game. And there's a lot of fantasy football players in this game as well.
All right, we got 2 questions from Carlos. Shout out to him. He's in the Gilded Chat. He's in the Frankenstein League. So his first question, are we worried about Burrow going forward? So that's going to lead into my game of the week. Ravens at Bengals. Lamar Jackson didn't look great either. He's going to bounce back. Joe Burrow's going to be fine. There's a saying in baseball, all right? Eventually the player is going to play to the back of their card, what their average is. I've seen enough from Joe Burrow. He's going to be fine. That offense is going to be fine. And then now the next question is Mahomes. Will he continue to be the Mahomes with that wide receiver core? I do think so, because I think they have enough depth in that wide receiver room that they could pull some guys up. And if they make plays, you're going to see Tony see limited reps. You're going to see Sky Moore see limited reps. Travis Kelce's going to come back. Here's what's going to happen. Travis Kelce's going to come back. He's going to be a stud. Rashee Rice is going to step up. He's going to be a very good wide receiver too. Now, can they have a stud tight end be the wide receiver 1? Can they have a very good wide receiver be the wide receiver 2? And then between Tony and Moore and MVS, can those other 3 or 4 wide receivers do enough to be the wide receiver 3? Throw in the fact they got Patrick Mahomes throwing them the football. I do believe he'll be fine. He's going to be a top 5 to 7 quarterback week in and week out.
My opinion, running back doesn't matter in that offense. You need to move Isaiah Pacheco to a slot receiver.
Yeah.
That's
all right. Hey, listen, if you're worried about guys like Patrick Mahomes, if you're worried about guys like Joe Burrow, and you're like, man, I kind of wish I could draft a brand new roster. Well, guess what? We've partnered with Rival Fantasy, right? So join rival.com/title tribe, right? That is how you sign up for Rival Fantasy. Sign up for Rival Fantasy and DM me or Justin what your username is on there, and you can join a fantasy league that will be drafting next week. We are drafting 5 more leagues that are going to start next week, and guess what? They're absolutely free. First place is going to win $150 in each of these 5 leagues. Second place is going to win $75. Third place is going to win $25. Okay, and if you are an active Patreon member by the end of the year, okay, from the start, from now to the end of the year, you are active and you win one of those leagues, you are going to get a $25 Fanatics gift card. That looks like the dog from Men in Black. So shout out. Yeah. So you'll get a $25 Fanatics gift card from Toilets to Titles on top of what you win from Rivals. So we have a league drafting at 8 p.m. next Tuesday. That is already filled. We have spots available in the league that's drafting at 9 p.m. We have spots available in the league that's drafting at 10 p.m. We have spots available in the league that's drafting at 11 p.m. They're limited spots. I think we have like 14 to 15 spots available. And Justin, you have a wacky league drafting Wednesday while you're recording your Rival show. How many spots are there available in that?
Just one. That's just a 10-team league because we're starting some crazy lineup. So if you like crazy, weird leagues that aren't your typical normal lineup settings, you're going to want in on this last spot.
Right. And I like, so before I move on to my dudes and duds, Nick Faria actually has a very good point. The Atlanta Falcons, 50-50 timeshare in the backfield, hurting Bijan's chances to be rushing leader. CMC, who is getting Panthers type volume on a top 5 team at San Francisco, but will he hold up in that type of usage? It's hard to tell. It's hard to guess an injury, but I do think Bijan, the Algier split, is Bijan's too damn good for them to not feed him as the season goes on. It's early in the year. Algier did eat into some of his touches, but as the season goes on, this rookie is going to get fed. I'm not concerned about him at all. The next thing, nothing like trying to figure out Frankenstein. Mark Simon, nothing like trying to figure out Frankenstein rules at 8:41 on Tuesday. Eyes away from Gilded. My eyes are, man, we spoon fed everybody for 4 months. Like, you know what I mean? And my eyes are away. My eyes are away. Nick saying, not sure why he didn't play Elijah Mitchell once they had the good lead, but only time will tell. Yeah, we'll see. You know, maybe they just wanted to beat the brakes off the Pittsburgh Steelers for some reason. All right. Well, his brother used to coach for the Ravens. Oh no, Harbaugh isn't in San Francisco anymore. What the hell what do I live in 2010? Well, that was might have been the worst analysis I've ever given on this show before. Yeah. All right. It's because Frankenstein is it's in my head. Hopefully the fires are out by the time we get back. All right.
Hey, Coach, you've been talking a lot. Do you want to take a little break? Let me do a couple of my biggest questions for you.
Yeah. Let's do your biggest questions. All right, then I'll move on to dudes.
You're kind of getting off the rails here. So
yeah, let's go.
All right. So I have a list of my 32 biggest questions. I'm going to be posting, like I said, in the Patreon, several of these. My first biggest question that I wanted to talk about, though, actually, I'm not even going to talk about it because it was Joe Burrow. We mentioned it earlier. No need to bring that up again. But one biggest question I have actually kind of relates to Bijan. Only 18 attempts for Desmond Ridder, but allowed great efficiency at an 83.3% completion rate for Desmond Ridder. So only 18 attempts, but a huge completion rate. Now, can they continue to win this way? Yeah, I doubt it. So will the Falcons throw more and trust their quarterback, or was this just strictly a case of them taking what the Panthers gave to them and they just decided they're going to run the ball a whole lot? So you guys put in the comments what your answers are to that question. I dropped, like I said, we're going to drop a little video about it later on this week before the week 2 games start. And then, of course, as a Colts fan, my next biggest question, Michael Pittman, 8 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. He was the top 10 wide receiver this week. Kylan Granson, 4 catches for 59 yards. I'm not saying that these two guys are going to be two guys every single week. I'm not saying it's going to be Michael Pittman every week. We already talked. It's going to be Josh Downs some weeks. They have a revolving door at tight end, but Anthony Richardson made these two guys fantasy relevant and against a pretty decent Jaguars defense. And can this continue for the Colts? Like, is Anthony Richardson going to be good enough to continue to make at least two guys fantasy relevant from week to week? And again, that's something that we got to wait and see. It's one of the big questions for me as I watch my Colts game this week. And then we talked about Ayuk till we were blue in the face so far. The last big question I have is Gus Edwards or Justice Hill. Gus Edwards had 8 carries. Justice Hill had 8 carries. Gus Edwards had 32 yards. Justice Hill only had 9 yards, but Justice Hill had the 2 touchdowns. So here's how you're going to try to treat this for your waiver wire tonight, guys, or tomorrow morning. Edwards is going to be your between the 20 guys. So he's going to be the guy that's going to get the most looks between the 20s. Neither of them are real heavily involved in the passing game. So if you want a safe floor, depending on how your team is built, you want Gus Edwards. But if you want that high impact, possible occasional spike, you want Justice Hill. Mm-hmm. At least based off of week 1. Now, they're going to have all week this week to plan out who their starter is going to be and how they're going to play it. So maybe things change. But for now,
I'm so torn about this backfield.
Yeah, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Very rough.
I just hope whichever one I end up, I'm going to put in bids for either of these guys. Yeah. I just hope whichever one I get my hands on is the one that produces.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with trying to get both, but you might have to give up too much of your fab too early. So it's week 1, so we kind of want to budget our fab too. So that's just something else to keep in mind. So like I said, the other 29 questions I have here, I'm going to post several of them into for the Patreon. The rest of them, you guys can check out the video when it drops later this week.
Excellent. Now I will get on my dudes and duds. I briefly checked out Gilded. Seems like there is some little confusion in there about what a starter means. And I think the person discussing it thinks it just meant NFL starter, not actually starter. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This person has 12 minutes to figure it out. All right. Dudes and does week 2. And I think I did pretty damn good week 1. You can go back and check out my dudes and duds on toiletstotitles.com. They're posted there every Wednesday at noon. So I'm feeling hot. I'm feeling like I'm coming in hot right now. I got a good grip on the NFL. I'm starting with Daniel Jones. All right. As a dude at the Arizona Cardinals, Cardinals came out swinging against the Commanders, but it wasn't enough. This week, the Giants are coming to town and they're pissed. I think the Giants are pissed off. Daniel Jones was running very well against the Cowboys, very well. It was a tough environment. Things got out of hand early. Their first drive, though, looked good. I think we're going to see Darren Waller get involved, Jalen Hyatt get involved, Darius Slayton get involved. I think it's going to be okay in the passing game, but I also think he's going to run very well. I think Daniel Jones, 20 plus points this week in a super flex league. If he's my quarterback 2, I'm feeling phenomenal. In a 1 quarterback league, if I waited late to draft him and I drafted studs ahead of him, like at other positions, I'm feeling very good about it. Another guy I have as a dude this week is going to be bouncing back as a guy I said turned back into a pumpkin. But guess what? This week he made another wish. And for the rest of the season, he might be covered. It's Geno Smith, the Detroit Lions. Lions are coming off a dub and are playing at home, but I don't think that'll affect Geno Smith's overall performance. Smith was shut down with Seattle last week. Now he gets the rebound indoors against the Lions. I like that controlled environment in Detroit. I like the turf. The turf makes guys like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett even faster. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to eat. Geno Smith is going to be fine. And that's a teaser to my DFS plays this week. Next, I got Nick Chubb at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nick Chubb was rather quiet in the Browns' Week 1 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. He'll make some noise in Week 2. The Steelers struggled to defend the run Week 1, and Chubb will benefit from fresh legs and a nice matchup. I mean, Christian McCaffrey absolutely gashed the Steelers. Nick Chubb going up there, gonna run through him. My next one, man, Breece Hall at the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a Cowboys fan. Giants remove, I think Barkley had like 4 or 5 yards per carry, but they just had to get away from the run game. And Barkley looked like he didn't want to be there in the second half. Breece Hall go ahead. What's that?
Would you want to be there?
No. Breece Hall was about it. Like Breece Hall looked hungry. When rushing lanes were collapsed and there was nowhere to go, he was fighting to find lanes and to find yards. And then he was finding the yards and he was bursting. Mm-hmm. The explosiveness I saw from Breece Hall was so impressive. And here's the key. I think the Jets defense will keep the Jets in this game enough, more so than the Giants did, so that the Jets can still continue to run. That's the thing. If they could keep him in this game, which I think they do, they'll be able to lean on Breece Hall. He's dynamic. He's electric. I'm starting him this week. Next, Chris Olave. He's my first back-to-back dude of the season. All right. At the Carolina Panthers, J.C. Horn is dealing with a hamstring injury. Panthers secondary is vulnerable. Olave got banged up a bit in Week 1. It didn't matter. Still wide receiver 10 for the week. I expect him to break 5. So he's going from being wide receiver 10. He's going to be wide receiver 5 or higher this week. Next, Zay Flower at the Cincinnati Bengals. Zay Flowers, rather. Multiple Flowers, not just one. Zay led the team in targets and managed a very strong fantasy day without getting into the end zone. Finished the week with 17 points and was wide receiver 16. I think Flowers' floor is 15 points. If he gets into the end zone, if he breaks a big play, we're going to see him 20-plus points. So as a flex play, Zay Flowers all day, Zay Day, I'm good with it. And I'm going to go out on a limb with this next one. Sam Laporta versus Seattle Seahawks. Maybe it's my eyes. I got blue-tinted glasses. I'm a little high on Sam Laporta. So maybe I'm trusting my heart, not my eyes. But he finished Week 1 as the second most targeted player in the passing game for the Detroit Lions. Laporta was a broken tackle away from few chunk plays. This week at home in Detroit, I expect Laporta to be targeted just as often. But I also expect him to break some of those chunk plays at home. In a home environment, he's going to feel that energy and he's going to want to run through somebody's face because Dan Campbell is going to have him gassed up. So now my duds for the week. So Justin, I threw dirt on the Colts last week. I owe you an apology because they played very good against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I'm sorry. I'm going to throw a little bit of dirt again. I am. But it's not because I don't think – I did say he's fantasy relevant, but it's more so about the team they're playing. Anthony Richardson at the Houston Texans is my first dud. The Texans held Lamar to 7 fantasy points in Week 1. 38 yards in the ground, 169 yards through the air, and he was sacked 4 times. The Texans are ready for Richardson. After playing Lamar, they're ready for Richardson. I think it's going to be a tough day for the kid. Justin Fields of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fields and the Bears had a horrendous first game. In my opinion, Tampa Bay, who played the Vikings very well in week one, has a much better defense than Green Bay, and they're much faster than Green Bay. Justin Fields is in for another struggle before he breaks out. Cam Akers versus San Francisco 49ers. He saw a decent amount of touches in week one, but ultimately took a backseat to Kyron Williams. 49ers defense is stout. Like, it's probably one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So I'm not starting him in a timeshare. Khalil Herbert at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, my second bear on the duds list. Another bear I'm shutting down. Herbert will have to deal with the Buccaneers defense that held your boy Alexander Madison to 13 PPR points in week one. And it'll likely be in a timeshare with Roschon Johnson. So I'm not touching him. Garrett Wilson at the Dallas Cowboys. Garrett Wilson is elite, but the Dallas Cowboys will have Zach Wilson under so much pressure, he won't be able to get Garrett Wilson the ball. I'm sure Wilson's going to come down with a few highlights because he's a walking highlight reel. He'll probably have 3 or 4 phenomenal catches, but it's not enough, especially against Trayvon Diggs or Stephon Gilmore. It's not enough for me to want to start him. Next, Deebo Samuel at the LA Rams. The LA Rams absolutely shut down the Seattle Seahawks passing attack in week one. Now, not only will that affect Deebo Samuel in his production, but he has to deal with becoming the third wheel behind Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk. And finally, Jake Ferguson versus the New York Jets. Ferguson had a few key drops in his matchup with the Giants in week one. The Jets secondary held Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid in check and will likely do the same to Ferguson and co. And I think Dak might shy away from Ferguson a little bit. He might give him an opportunity early to earn his trust. If he drops another ball, he's out, moving down the line.
All right. So before I move on to the to my next segment, Steve is asking about Melvin Gordon. Here's my take on Melvin Gordon. I think if you want to put in for him for free, I think it's actually a really smart move, maybe even $1. Don't spend money on him because I don't think a lot of people are going to be thinking of him, to be quite honest with you. He wasn't involved at all this week. Maybe he wasn't even dressed or active. I don't know, but that's a smart move to me, is let everybody spend their early fab money on those other guys and sneak in there and take Gordon for free. With all the injuries that happen with the Baltimore backfield every year, he's liable to get some run. And then funny story real quick. Lori says that she has a Frankenstein spokesperson at home. And then this spokesperson let her down for a second year in a row. She kept asking me today when it's the deadline to submit her steal. And I was like, don't worry about it. We're going to do it tonight. I'll do it after work. I was so busy. I was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. She was talking about the blob card, which was due at noon. She wanted to steal a player. So
but she should have watched the video.
Well, this is why it all led to her now being in the chat, the guilty chat, because she realizes that she can't trust her husband.
Well, look at that, though. So anybody who's in Frankenstein that is complaining about some of the decisions, if we have to be hard on you, Justin's being hard on his wife.
That's right. I would not let her go back and allow it to happen. It's against the rules.
We need to brighten the mood, though. Go from the negative press to some positive press. And by positive press, I'm talking about Patreon. Join the Patreon team, patreon.com/toilets to titles. Lowest tier is $1.50. Top tier is $20 a month. And if you do the $20 a month tier, we will record an episode about one of your fantasy football leagues. But if you get in tier 2 or above, we're doing giveaways. We're at 43 Patreons, and when we hit 45 Patreons, I have assigned DeAndre Hopkins and a Mike Evans card. I'm giving them both away. So we're going to do 2 winners on the show. Last week, we gave away a Trevor Lawrence signed photograph. 2 weeks ago, we gave away a copy of Madden 24. So, yes, you'll be supporting us. $1.50, $3, $5. It's like a cup of coffee. All right? You support us, but also you get an opportunity to win something awesome. So, shout out to Dylan Whitmer, who won the Trevor Lawrence signed photograph. All right, Justin, on to you, man. Let's talk about the streaming life.
All right, we're going to talk about the streaming life. We're going to talk about Adam Troutman at your tight end position for the Denver Broncos. He gets the start against the Commanders in week 2 with Greg Dulcich being out. I mean, that's not official. He's not going to be out, but it's a hammy, and Dulcich has a history of hammies that keep him out for multiple weeks. So I'm just assuming here, but we're streaming, and we need to get in our waivers tonight. So you got to do what you got to do. We're going to go after Troutman because most people won't anyway. The Commanders gave up 12.4 fantasy PPR points against the Cardinals in week 1. The Arizona Cardinals that couldn't do anything else, they got their tight ends going. So Troutman had nearly 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns his senior year at Dayton. Over his NFL career, he has been stuck with a subpar quarterback play or weaker offensive lines where he's been required to play that blocking aspect of the tight end game. This week, he finally gets the opportunity to get what I'm predicting to be a 15 to 18% target share on a team that will need to throw against a team that will force early and short passes. So in PPR, especially, Troutman is a must start. Quarterbacks, I wanted to talk about Jordan Love here as a streaming quarterback. You're going to stream him in one quarterback leagues because he actually tends to be available in a lot of quarterback leagues. But I also feel like this is more of a waiver wire pickup because I feel like Jordan Love isn't a guy you're going to drop after this week after you pick him up. So still try to target him for waivers, but since it's more of a long-term deal, it's not. It goes against the spirit of the stream. So.
Right.
Mac Jones is actually my streaming quarterback for this week. New England Patriots quarterback is rostered in 4.9% of leagues, and he's coming off of a big game against the Eagles. Mac is a very streamable quarterback this week because he faces a Miami Dolphins defense who gave up 34 offensive NFL points to the Chargers last week, but also 23 fantasy points to Justin Herbert, who finishes a top 5 quarterback. The Dolphins are going to score points. We can see it. It looks like the next biggest show on turf, except just grass. And it's a shame they don't still have dirt on their field too. But if they're going to score a lot of points, this means that the Patriots and Mac Jones also need to try to score a lot of points to stay up with them. It's going to be a lot of throwing in this game as well. My defensive streaming team is the Indianapolis Colts, rostered in 0.9%. I don't care if coach hates the Colts or not. The Colts played very inspired football in week 1 against a very inspired defense, especially against the Jaguars. And it'll be another few weeks before the Colts finally just give up altogether. So in the meantime, let's take advantage of these good matchups. For right now, they were a low-end defense 1 in week 1, and they play Houston in week 2. Houston only scored 3 field goals in week 1 with their rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And while I think Stroud's going to get better, sometimes rookie quarterbacks slowly progress. And I feel like that's what we're going to see out of CJ Stroud because he doesn't have the team around him to help him excel and progress very quickly. And then my kicking streamer, I just said it. Like if the Dolphins and the Patriots are going to score a lot of points, you want a kicker from that game. Jason Sanders, Miami kicker, is rostered in 7.4% of leagues. Sanders is he's playing in a very good offense that will undoubtedly score multiple points multiple weeks. Tie that in with the fact that he's facing the Patriots, who have that bend but don't break style defense that you love to see in your streamable kickers. And so the Patriots gave up the most fantasy points to kickers in week 1 in Jake Elliott. So this is a match made in heaven for streaming kickers, guys. Get your Jason Sanders in your Scott Fish Bowl, put him in there as your flex, and thank me later.
Yep. Mark asked percent of fab for Puka. I'd go with 50%, and that's because I'm gonna. You think you more or less?
I'm less. Okay, I see where you're going with this though. Like he's gonna have standalone value even when cut.
I thought 50 was low. What are you thinking?
Wow, I don't like to spend a lot of fab early though. Yeah. That's kind of my style too.
Well, if you want him. If you're somebody who's like, I want Puka, maybe 30 to 40%.
Yeah, I could probably agree to that.
The reason I'm not going all in on him, which I don't like doing these percentages. I'm sorry, I'm not good at it. But my thoughts with Puka are, I know I'm going to have to worry week in and week out. At least that's what I think if he's going to produce.
Yeah.
Maybe by week 4, week 5, you struck gold because he's consistent. But I still don't know yet. And I don't like having guys on my bench that I'm struggling to, he's got such upside, So I struggle with that. But all right, I'm going to finish this off with the DFS plays of the week before we move on to this time next week. But Uncle Steve, of course, he was involved in the issue in Frankenstein this evening. Uncle Steve was the other team that didn't get a player stolen because somebody didn't understand the rules.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
of course, Uncle Steve, and I know his strategy. He wants to tank the first 2 weeks so he can get a hero card. Uncle Steve, I'm on to you.
No, I
And
think it might have been more to that because if you think about it, he also has the Rumple card, so maybe he wanted him to try to steal.
all right. Well, regardless, he lost. He's closer to a hero, and he didn't lose a player. So Uncle Steve, man, shout out to you. But we'll see what this
He knows
fire
how
is
to play
like.
the game.
Yeah, let's see what this fire is like when we get into the guild chat. I got to wrap this up because we got to record on the clock our NFL draft show. This time next week, what we'll be saying is I'm thinking if only the Jets had a quarterback, the Jets will be scrappy. They'll compete with the Cowboys. I think they're going to play well. They're going to show up again like they did against Buffalo. But fans will be left asking, what would the possibilities be if we had a legitimate quarterback? What is your this time next week?
I'm going to say that if only the Colts had a running back. So you're talking about the Jets quarterback. I'm talking about the
Right.
Colts running back.
Right.
This is going to be 2 weeks in a row where we're going to be missing Jonathan Taylor so badly. The Colts may still actually pull this one off because it's Houston, but
Right.
it's going to be ugly even with that. And the Colts are still we're going to miss that running back. And just so the Patreons know, some of you were looking for those DFS plays of the week. We didn't have time to get to them. I'm going to send those out to the Patreons tonight, tomorrow. Definitely before the Thursday games.
Right. All right, everybody. This was episode number 195, week 2 of the fantasy football season. Good luck this week. Again, if your team stinks and you want to draft again, get into the Gilded chat by emailing us toiletstetitles@gmail.com. We'll get you in one of the 4 remaining opening leagues that are either drafting on Tuesday night or Wednesday night of next week. If you're already in the Gilded chat, I've posted it multiple times what time we're drafting next week, where the openings are. So reach out to me. You're allowed to play in up to 2 of these. Rival, let us know. It's free. You can win as much as $150 and a $25 gift card if you're an active Patreon member. So everybody, we will catch you all later on. Take care.